here to weigh in on Musk's Twitter takeover is Sean Duffy, former Wisconsin congressman and Fox News contributor, and John Tamny, my old buddy John. Good to see you, John. FreedomWorks vice president and author of a great book called When Politicians Panicked. Well, John, let me start with you, because a lot of politicians have been panicking over the past couple of days with the thought of Elon taking over, because they thought that Twitter was going to be on their side, which was more of a status side. It looks as though there may be efforts by some of those politicians to try to prevent Elon from taking over. Charlie Gasparino has been talking to some sources saying there could be an SEC Justice Department joint investigation of his past actions. Maybe some of that motivated by these politicians who don't like him. What do you make of all this?
I'm not surprised, but I was also surprised that he made the initial investment in the first place. Elon Musk is not a passive investor. He doesn't transform existing companies. He's an entrepreneur who takes us in all new directions, in directions that we never imagined, that when we're thinking about, we're scratching our heads. And so his latest move actually makes a lot more sense. Yeah. He would never buy Twitter just to give us more free speech. It's obvious that he would buy it and take it private because he wants to take it to a place that no one's ever imagined, that markets would be so surprised by that it'd probably be dangerous to have the shares publicly traded at the time. And so better to take it private while he thoroughly transforms it. And,
you know, just sticking with you for a second, John, I mean, you've been focusing on when talking about politicians complain about Twitter and other social media companies, that the government shouldn't get involved. This should be handled by the private sector. It seems that that's what's beginning to happen. That's a positive development, I think, don't you?
It's hugely positive, and when are we going to learn this lesson? We keep saying that, well, social media is not fair to us. It's not fair to a certain point of view. But as we see with technology right now, the frontier of it changes all the time. The powers that be change all the time. Not too many years ago, Elon Musk wasn't taken very seriously. Now he is taken more seriously than anyone. And so if you sit back and allow people, allow capital to flow, invariably the change takes place that changes the team picture at the top.
I think that's a great point. I really think that's what's happening here. I think it's a positive development, Sean. And just to review what it is about the way Twitter is run that Elon doesn't like, I'm going to quote the current CEO. He took over in the fall, in late fall, Parag Agrawal. I always mispronounce his name. Forgive me for doing that. But I'm going to quote him now about the First Amendment. He said, quote, "Our role is not to be bound by the First Amendment, but our role is to serve a healthy public conversation, and our moves are reflective of things that we believe lead to a healthier public conversation. The kinds of things that we do about this is focus less on thinking about free speech, but thinking about how times have changed." Now, that includes things like censoring politicians, censoring New York Post story on Hunter's laptop, et cetera. And I think that Elon sees a better way to make money. In fact, their stock, even though it's 45 or so right now, it went down to 31 once this guy took over, because he just wasn't as open-minded as his predecessor.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting. You look at Democrats. I mean, they're big global warmingists. They love the Green New Deal. And so Elon Musk, as we make this transition to electrifying autos, the owner of Tesla, the left loves him for that. But here he comes to Twitter and says, I'm going to transform Twitter and bring free speech back to this platform. And they absolutely lose their minds because they can't have a public debate. They don't want to get into the arena and talk about ideas and see who wins. The only way they can win with their really bad ideas is to shut down the opposition. And that's why you see them freaking out about Elon Musk. And I think whether it's the employees of Twitter, whether it's Democrats or other really wealthy, rich liberals, they're going to try to stop this as best they can. And I don't know that I agree with you and John. I do think there's a role for government. If you can't participate in the public square because you have liberals who will keep you out of the public square, I'm all about innovation, but at some point we have to have a dialogue and a conversation in the country, and you can't go down to the actually the town square and get on a soapbox and start to talk. No one hears you. That worked 200 years ago. It doesn't today. It's on Twitter and Facebook and other social media platforms. And so if we don't get some diversity of thought and conversation on the platforms, I think government does have to be involved to mandate
right
that.
Now we're talking about how they're trying to prevent Elon Musk, a private sector operator doing the private sector thing, by trying to buy out the company. How they're, I'm sure you know how Washington works. You were a congressman for a while there. You know that the congressional staffers right now are going through all of Elon's records, looking for any possible violations, SEC violation or Justice Department violation that they could use to try to prevent him to use the power of the government to prevent what's going on with Twitter. I just think that that's the biggest danger that we have.
But they feel threatened by Elon Musk getting involved. And again, I do think that these principles of free speech have to extend to the public square. And if they don't, I think Congress has to be involved. I don't think the Congress will be involved until after November, when Republicans who do believe in free speech, that are confronted, whether on TV or town halls, wherever they go, they get asked hard questions. Democrats get a pass all the time. We want to have a debate. And again, we want to have these platforms embrace that. And just to think about how far Democrats and liberals will go to shut down Elon Musk, it shows you how opposed they are to free speech and to
John,
debate.
I'm sure you have a response to what Sean was saying about the role of the government in protecting free speech in the private sector. Go ahead.
Yeah, Sean's reply presumes that Twitter and Google and Facebook are the frontier of technology and also free speech. But as we know from history, they're not. What were the two most powerful internet companies in the year 2000? Yahoo and AOL. Have you heard about them much lately? To presume that 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now that Facebook, Google, and Twitter will be the frontier of how we communicate is laughable. And I think that's the point of Elon Musk's investment. We're focused on free speech, and no doubt he's a free speech absolutist, but guaranteed he is not making an investment like this to give me the right to talk about the coronavirus on Twitter. He is looking to transform how we view speech, how we do it, how we communicate all together. So I think, again, to focus on little things like this and say, oh, it's not fair, conservatives aren't treated well. No, 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 no. Private property is what's important, because when it's allowed to reach valuations, when investors are able to come in, they are able to transform how we communicate in the first place. Don't focus on the now, focus on the future.
How has that worked for us? Right? It's like, back in the 20s and 30s, shutting down radio to, one side of speech, or then TV, shutting that down to speech. It would have completely transformed the way Americans think about policy and issues.
But Sean, we did shut down free speech on the media when we had that fairness law that I believe it was Ronald Reagan who got rid of that. So we did have government try to shut down free speech, and they had a lot of effect in doing it.
David, not like
you're going to get more free speech with government, you're just
Twitter.
dreaming.
It was pretty bad. But let me just end, because I think there's a positive note here, because what Elon Musk has done is essentially put himself in a no-lose position. That is to say, even if he is unable to buy up Twitter, if he's prevented somehow from doing it, it will remain in the hands of a very censorious, a very censor-prone administration or management, and there will be a greater space for an alternative, a viable alternative to Twitter. Don't you agree? Would you both agree to that?
Yes. Like Parler, when Amazon shuts their servers down and Google and Apple shut down the app on their platforms. I mean, there's a huge amount of power that's consolidated right now. So even Parler
that
can't
presumes
launch.
that this is the frontier for technology. But as we know from history, it never is. If Twitter stays in stasis where it is now, rest assured it will be wiped off the map by free markets. Keep government out unless you want to limit speech.
Well, John, I don't presume that at all. I know we're going to innovate and create. And there'll be new platforms. But I think the idea of free speech, when this is the public debate stage, has to be guaranteed for all Americans. Otherwise, I think our democracy is in jeopardy.
Final word,
I would not want to go through the government. I would not want to go through the government for that, for all the reasons that David described. What you need is capital if you want free speech.
By the way, would you
both
agree that Section 230 needs some kind of amendment or some kind of change in it? Because clearly an operation like Twitter is not acting like the open pipeline. It's acting more like a censorious editor than it is like the open pipeline that Section 230 presumes.
I just wish the government would stop acting in the first place. Section 230 happened, in the 1990s, before Twitter even existed. Just let markets be free and
so get rid of 230, right, John?
Well, how about just politicians don't do anything, in which case capital will find interesting innovators who will make Twitter yesterday's news on their own.
I'm getting a wrap, but Sean, would you agree we should get rid of 230?
I do, and I wish the market would work here, but you have so much power consolidated in these monopolies. It's not going to work unless the government gets involved.
That's why we know it's working.
Gentlemen, a great debate. We thank you both for being here. We are not censorious. We agree to have both sides represented here. Thank you very much, guys. Good to see you.